What's going on, guys? Big Mike, the 717 Outlaw back here. So a couple weeks ago, we went out to XDA, and actually I had the issue at Beaver. I thought I fixed it for XDA. We messed around with it at XDA. It kind of killed me from my qualifiers. But that kinked fuel line, I finally found the hopeful resolution to that problem. So we had the Hayabusa up on the stand again, and what we're going to try to take a look at is that section of fuel line that keeps catching me and getting me caught up a whole bunch at the past couple races. So anybody that knows though too, we have the low pro catalyst tank. So I have two lines that go off this. One goes to the fuel pressure regulator, which is basically the return line to the tank. And then one is a feed line. Now the feed line comes from the tank down here to the filter. And then you can kind of see where my issue is right here. Is this angle that goes into the pump. So the resolution that I found, a couple of my buddies build like classic cars and do some like resto stuff. So they recommended stopping over to Jegs, which we got a box from Jegs that has 6AN braided stainless line that should not kink. We have a high flow filter, which will actually, it's a reusable filter. So there's a screen in it. That filters out any dirt and things like that can cause problems. But I got this filter specifically because it is rated for alcohol and methanol. Anybody that doesn't know yet is I'm trying to possibly go to like E98 or E85 next year with possible injector upgrades. So I figured get a higher flow filter to help me out with that. Along with that, from the pump to the AN lines, the fuel pump has a what is it, an 1/8 inch NPT fitting. So we got 1/8 inch to 6AN 90 that'll come off the pump. And then just got our interchangeable filter, or at least a new filter just in case this one gets clogged up. But we have all of our 6AN fittings to hopefully run a new section of line from the tank to the filter to the pump. And that should resolve our problem. Now I got plenty of extra lines, so if I order more fittings, I can redo the entire fuel system for the bike going from the fuel rail all the way to the pump. But right now, those lines are still good, so I'm not really worried about tearing them apart. I just want to worry about the trouble section. And then more than likely, I'll redo the fuel lines and stuff once I do the E85 conversion with bigger injectors and a billet fuel rail, because that fuel rail uses different fittings, at least from what I saw in the pictures and what it says in the description, that it will use different fittings than what is stock right now. Well, now that we got I swear, this fuel just keeps dripping for no reason. But got everything disconnected, so pretty much first thing we got to get to is this 90 fitting back here. So we're taking this 90, and I have one now that switches it to 6AN. We're going to run that line out. I'm thinking that we can run it up this way, and I'm hoping that we can just somehow strap the filter here or even back in here somewhere, and then run the line to the tank out around, which should give us what we need. I'm pretty much going to come off that fitting, come out this way. There's going to be a 90 into the filter. The filter is going to go straight across, 90 again, go over on that side of the motor instead. And then we'll hook up to the bottom of the tank, which I should be able to fully reuse the quick fittings that are on that, because I have I think it's like Jiffy Tight Pro fittings, which are just like quick connects, almost like an air compressor style fitting. So just hopefully I can just unthread that from the existing 90 on the rubber fuel line and then hook it directly into the 90 that's going to be coming off of this setup. And we should be pretty good. I just figured it'd be easier to hard mount the filter. I was going to hook it to the swing arm, but I'm a little iffy on that just because the swing arm is going to move Not much, but it's going to move a little bit to some degree, and I figured the less movement that line has to do, the better. So we're going to try to run it with that. If not, worst comes to worst, I can mount it to the one, I guess, this front cross member instead of the rear. I was tempted to mount it back here and then run it back, which honestly, it might not be a bad idea. I just have to see once I start getting things laid out. But first thing we got to do is get that 90 fitting off so we have an AN fitting to hook everything to. All right, well, with constantly getting rained on by fuel, so what we did, we went ahead, pulled this bolt out for the suspension. You can see this is really rigged the way that I'm doing this, but picked up on it to kind of get some of the weight off the suspension. And what this allows me to do is I can move the fuel pump bracket and everything, so I have more access to the fitting that we're trying to swap. So this is 1/8 inch NPT with, it looks like a barb fitting, which is why they crimped it. So what we're swapping out to is, this is still going to remain 1/8 inch NPT, but it's going to 90 and go to a 6AN, so that way we can thread our fittings right into the side and then come off and go up to our fuel pump. All right, well, have a pretty good difference here. You can see 1/8 inch NPT, 1/8 inch NPT, and then going up to our 6AN, which looks like that's going to have a lot more flow than that. So the bike should be getting all the fuel that it needs. That fuel pump that's on the Busa, remember, is rated for about 500 horsepower, so should be able to get her supply a lot better with that big of a line and then running that thick of a hose, because that's got a lot more room to move some fuel, and then we'll go ahead and get our other lines figured out. A little bit of Permatex thread sealer. We went ahead and got our fitting mounted up, and now we can go ahead that's going to be a snug fit. NPT to AN fitting in, so now we can actually finally start working on this. So I think what I'm going to do first is try to figure out where I can mount the fuel filter. All right, guys, so here's what our filter with our 90s looks like. So this is what I have to try to find the location for, because I'm thinking something like this, to where we have a 90. This will be angled forward, but it'll go from the front of our fuel pump down there to this 90, over to that 90, preferably through that gap, and then up to the tank. So then everything will come from the tank down to the filter, down to the fuel pump, and then fuel pump pumps it all the way back up to the fuel rail and the pressure regulator. But gotta try and figure out the best way we can get this mounted in here. Now, based on the looks of it, if I could get something kind of mixed in with these holes, if not, I can move it forward and possibly tuck it in here somewhere. But worst comes to worst, I could always mount it right here on the swing arm and just run the lines in. I ordered about 6 foot worth of stainless line, so I should have plenty to get all of this plumbed, and then I can just hopefully redo the fuel system later. But now we gotta try and figure out how to get this on. All right, well, a quick little mount here. This filter's pretty rigid. Just simple nut bolt. I was gonna do riv nuts, but this is really tight to try to get the riv nut, like the gun or the tool, in here. So we're just gonna mount it here, and then that gives us room to run our 90 to the tank, 90 down to the pump, and we should be good. Like I said, I want to hard mount these, so that way this line here has as little movement as possible, which this line seemed like it was the one giving me the most issues. Well, we made progress. We have one fitting on the end of our braidless, or braided stainless. So now we got to do is hook this up here, get a good estimate for coming up to this fitting. Then I can take this off, threaded onto the line, and then I'll have maybe like an 8-inch line going from here to there. But let's go ahead and try and get this on. Maybe we can at least get this line knocked out here tonight. And then we just got one more to do, probably tomorrow. Well, guys, this is not a lot more difficult, but it is slightly more difficult since I actually don't have the right tools. So I fudged up on one of the fittings, or one of the sections of line. It frayed real bad as I tried to slip the fitting on. But second round, we have one line routed. I gotta make the other side yet, but I don't think that looks too bad. It just clears the swing arm, or at least this cross member here. And then hard mount to our filter, and then just gotta do that side. But we're gonna get back to it tomorrow. It's already like 10:15. I'm going home to get some sleep, and we'll get started back on this tomorrow. All right, guys. Well, a couple days later, back working on the Busa. Going to try and get these fuel lines finished up. We only have one more line that we need to do, and I was trying to figure out too the best way to cut these lines, which I think I have the right idea to cut them to where I can make everything cleaner and go together smoother. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and knock out this final line for the fuel system. And I mean, I think the Busa should be ready to go. Like I said, we were going to go racing this weekend. Unfortunately, certain events are happening at the racetrack, and they're trying to do testing in between. I was going to go to it to get the seat time. It's not lining up, so I'm not going to rush. Next weekend, it looks like we might have a better option. I think I'm going to go against my better judgment, and we're going to try to sign up for Beaver Springs for the SBRA, which is an 8th mile racing setup, and see what happens. Because if I can get the bike to run really good, I might see about doing index classes at other tracks if I can get the bike dialed in on the 8th. I think it's going to be too fast to do 560 index, but we're going to see. That's for a later time. But let's go ahead and get these fuel lines finished up and hopefully get the bike running good. This is going to go 90 off the filter into the bottom of the fuel tank. So let's go ahead and hook this up, get a mark for our tank, and then we should be good to go. All right, guys, you can see where we're routing this at. We're going to go roughly in there. It's going to fit right underneath, but when we do it, I'm probably going to cut it a little long. That way we can push it to the other side of the fuel tank, so that way it won't be a chance of pinching it here to the bottom of the frame. So when I hook it there, hopefully when we put the seat down, the line will push to that side, or yeah, push over to that side, and then she should be routed pretty good. But go ahead and get this rough measurement down, and it's not looking too bad. It goes from the fuel filter right through next to the shock, and then right to the bottom of our tank. Now, at some point in the future, I'm going to go ahead and take this straight fitting off. I'll probably do another 90 similar to this one, or maybe something a little bit different, and run it down here, because like our fuel pressure regulator is right down in here, and we can get kind of tuck all this stuff out of the way. Hopefully when I get the new motor built and do maybe a standalone, I'll have a fuel pressure regulator mounted in here on the side, and I can hopefully run the lines from the the return line from here to there, or even if I can if I can put the regulator on the tank somehow, it might make it a little bit easier, because we'll figure it out later, because all I have to do is go to the fuel rail. Once I do the billet fuel rail, there should be a hookup on this side, and possibly the return on the other side, or the fuel pressure regulator will be hooked up to the other side, so that way it can manage itself. But almost there, guys. All right, guys. Well, that set went together a little bit easier, so got our fitting on. Just as a thing, I don't know if I said it earlier in the video, the tape I'm putting on here is just for me to show that if these fittings are moving, I'll see silver in between, which it was kind of just, I have them on it now, just kind of because. I was thinking earlier I might have, if I would have thought a little bit more ahead, I could have put some shrink wrap or some heat shrink on this. And then once I got the fittings put on, I could have just ran the heat shrink up partway onto this fitting and just shrunk it right to it, and then it would have held it, because the marine grade ones that I use have like a glue inside them, so it kind of adheres better. But I mean, this fuel line, not too bad. We're gonna go ahead and get her on, and hopefully we can test fire the Busa here in a minute, and hopefully that figures out our leaning out issue, which it should have been, because I kept noticing that it was kinking. I'm not sure, again, if it was kinking off of the pump kicking on and trying to suck the fuel from the tank, and it was kinking on itself, or if the routing was just not right and it just didn't want to work. Especially with the new swing arm, we did route it a little bit differently than it was on the Evil arm that I had. But we're just going to see what happens. And another thing I want to put out, now I'm saying about the Evil arm, the 4 to 8 adjustable that I had on the Busa originally, I was going to do a trade with Evil swing arms, but unfortunately they are in the process of moving. They told me my best bet would be to sell it. If anybody is interested in a 4 to 8 adjustable arm, which based on what I've done now, it fits a Gen 1 and a Gen 2, I have a swing arm for $400. I think when I bought it, it was $900. I put it down to half price because it does have a couple blemishes, but that's just because it's a 3-year-old arm now. But other than that, the arm is in really good condition. And yeah, if anybody wants a 4 to 8 adjustable arm for their Busa, hit me up and I'll try to get that to you, because I think I'm going to sell the 4 to 8, maybe opt for a brand new arm for the turbo bike, and then put the old arm back on the pink bike. And then I could probably have the pink bike set up a little bit more race friendly. So maybe I can do a street ET, but I'm not sure if I'm restricted on wheelbase. But we'll get it figured out anyway. But if you want an arm, hit me up. But let's go ahead and get this on and get our fuel lines finished up. All right, guys. We have all of our routing finished up. Everything's nice and snug. The air line, I'm not sure if you can even see it, runs right down along our wiring harness, right to the back side of the pump. And like I said, it's on this side of the tank, since the tank is only about maybe this wide. I have this area, so the line comes out, goes up over just a little bit, and then drops down right there by the shock. And we're gonna go ahead, prime the fuel system. I'll do that again just to make sure that it puts fuel. All right, sounds like the fuel pump's pressured. And we're gonna double check too, do a quick fire up and make sure that she's good. Put the cap on. Let me put you guys down here for a second. There's the fuel pump. Looks like we're gonna have to wait for a track day. It is raining outside. I was gonna go outside and try. There was one little thing when I noticed that the fuel system was messing up, was the burnout. It kind of had a hiccup in the burnout. So maybe if it dries up, I might go outside and test it. If it doesn't do that hiccup, then I'm pretty sure we got the issue dialed in. But everything's checking out. No leaks, no nothing. The whole system looks good. I mean, all these lines are really hard. So for me, I don't see them kinking by any means. And honestly, just based on what I've done so far, granted, it can be a little bit of a headache with certain things, but if anybody is down to the challenge of making your own fuel lines, the Jegs items that I picked up are a pretty good deal. It was like with four fittings, the fuel filter, and 6 foot of braided line, which you can do the nylon coated. I was thinking do stainless just because it might have a little bit better wear and tear. It did kind of become a headache to do. So if you had the nylon, it might not be as bad to put the hose ends on. But with the 4 main fittings, well, I guess 5, because the 90 on the fuel pump, the fuel filter, and the line, it was like $120 for that. Now, if you're doing a car, you'll probably be looking at more, but even the reels of line, I think I only paid, like, out of that 125, I think $25 was at the actual fuel line. So it's not that expensive. The fittings are where you end up spending most of your money, because the fittings were almost $10 a piece. The fuel filter, which, like I said, I got the fuel filter that was rated for alcohol or ethanol because at some point in this bike's life, I will be running either E98 or maybe I'll do like a methanol blend or something just to get more power out of the setup that I currently have. So we're gonna kind of keep it as is like that and just see what happens. But anyway, guys, I hope you liked the video. If you do, give it a thumbs up. You know anything more about the bike, more about the channel, more about things that I have bought for the bike. One, check the links down below for the websites and the companies that I order parts from. But two, smash that subscribe button. And I will catch you guys on the next upload, which will hopefully be us up at the racetrack. Beaver Springs has an event coming up this coming weekend that we are going to be going to now that the bike is good. With Mother's Day and stuff, this weekend would have been extremely tight to try to do everything. So kind of calling it a day there with that. And yeah, we're going to go ahead and see what we can get done and get up to the racetrack next weekend. So, all right, guys, like I said, I'll catch you on the next one. Just don't forget, yeah, I'm going to forget my own outro. Ride safe, ride smart, always wear a helmet.